Welcome once again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk around the NHL. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matthew Balzer. Matt, let's call you Matt, not Matthew. Let's start it off where we kind of ended on Monday's show. The playoff race continues to get tighter. Big game tomorrow night between Columbus and Montreal. An exciting game on Friday night, even between Washington and Tampa. But let's start with the playoff bubble teams. And let's start off in the East. I know you've got most of these teams have 5, 6, maybe even 7 games left. And you've got the schedule there. Who do you see has got the easier schedule, and who can you see making the playoffs?
Yeah. So you got Columbus and Montreal there as the two bubble teams. Columbus has a game in hand on Montreal, so they face each other tomorrow, which will be a huge 4-point night.
Big epic proportion.
But yeah, if you look at the remaining schedule for each of these teams, Columbus, of course, plays Montreal tomorrow, and then they're at Nashville and Buffalo, and then they're back at home to play Boston, and then they finish out the season in playing in New York against the Rangers, and then in Ottawa. So that's a pretty easy schedule. But Montreal, they got a tough road ahead of them. That game in Columbus will be huge for them on deciding where they're going to finish, because they have to go to Winnipeg after, and then they're at home facing Tampa Bay, and then they play Washington in Washington, and then they finish out at home against Toronto. So those are some heavy-hitting teams. So it's like Carey Price, you never know. He can steal a couple games, but like that game in Columbus tomorrow is going to be huge for Montreal on if they make the playoffs or not.
If Montreal's on a hot streak and Columbus plays well, do you think Carolina might be on the outside looking in?
No,
I think those bunch of jerks ready for the playoffs.
Oh yeah. I think Carolina is basically a guarantee. They're at 91 points right now, so still only 1 point ahead of Montreal. But with the way Carolina is, I think they're basically guaranteed to get in right now. But like Columbus, you got Bobrovsky. He's got back-to-back shutouts in his last 2 games. He's now up to 8 on the season.
Everybody shuts out the Canucks.
I know, yeah. Well, he did have one against the Islanders too, and they're one of the best defensive teams in the NHL. So
they actually are the best defensive team by goals against. And it's funny because last year they had the most goals against.
Yeah.
They went from the most against to the least amount against, and I think Barry Trotz deserves huge props for that.
Yeah, it's crazy, and they'll be the first team in NHL history to do that, giving up most goals one season to giving up the least the next season. The only NHL team in NHL history if things work out.
Let's look at the West. Arizona won a huge game last night, 1-0 against Chicago. They're playing Minnesota and Dallas next up. I mean, they're playing all the teams basically that they are trying to catch. The West is still tight. It's still kind of the Turtle Derby. Milan Lucic on Vancouver radio today saying they still had a chance with Draisaitl and McDavid, but and he actually brought up a point that I never thought of, but he said only recently in the last few weeks is the first time they've had all 6 of their regular defensemen healthy since the last playoff game they played against the Anaheim Ducks 2 years ago. And he said he feels since they've been back, there's been a shift in their team, and they've been playing quite well. I don't see them making it. Obviously, they got a big hole to go, but they do play against a lot of the teams. Like they play Dallas, I believe, tomorrow night. So they do play against some of the teams that they're trying to catch, but I think it's too little too late there. So that being said, Arizona, Chicago, Dallas, Minnesota, Colorado, who do you see grabbing those last 2 spots?
Yeah, so I think Dallas will get that top spot, and I'm still gonna go with my gut and go with Colorado.
Yeah.
I think they will get in. If you look at the remaining schedule, Colorado are facing Vegas tonight, and then they face Arizona in their next game at home. That'll be a huge head-to-head game as they're both tied in points right now. And then they're in St. Louis, and then they play Edmonton and Winnipeg at home, and then they finish out in San Jose, who's been really struggling of late right now. And if you look at Arizona, their next game is at Colorado. and then they face Minnesota, and that's a huge head-to-head matchup. And then they face LA, and then they face Vegas and Winnipeg to end the season. So those are two tough matchups there. And then you go to Minnesota, which I think they're done. I know Bruce Boudreau guaranteed they'd make the playoffs this year, but they have the least amount of games remaining, and they're in Vegas next game, and then they face Arizona, and then Winnipeg, Boston, and Dallas to finish the season. So I think Minnesota's done and out. And then Chicago's intriguing because they got a couple games in hand.
Mm-hmm.
They're in San Jose next game, and then in LA, and they face Winnipeg, St. Louis, and Dallas at home, and then they finish out on the road in Nashville. So they still have a bit of an outside shot to get in just because they have that extra game in hand. But I think
a lot of teams scrapping to get in all play Dallas, it seems.
Mm-hmm. I know, and Dallas has actually been a really good defensive team this year. Actually, pretty underrated. It's just that they haven't been able to score many goals this year. But Ben Bishop and Anton Khudobin have been great in that. And their new coach, what's his name, Montgomery or something like that. Yeah, he's actually done a really good job defensively there. It's just that their big guns went pretty quiet for a while there, and their depth scoring. I know Zuccarello might be back pretty soon. I know he joined the team on their road trip, so he should be back pretty soon from that fractured arm that he suffered in his first game after getting traded there.
After getting a goal too. So that's just a few things to watch for the next few days, and obviously next week's going to be super exciting. April 9th, I believe, is the draft lottery. That will be interesting to see for teams that aren't going to make the playoffs as to where they pick. And that gives us as fans a long time to prep for that, which is really nice because it's happening before the playoffs rather than after the playoffs this year. A few career milestones and stuff like that we missed out on or that have happened since Monday's show. Let's go over those.
All right. So tonight, Patrick Marleau is playing his 1,652nd career game. He ties Mark Recchi for 5th all-time in NHL history. John Tavares had that 4-goal game for the Leafs. He's the first Leaf to score 4 goals in a game since Matthews' debut, which that was still a crazy game. And also, he's at 45 goals this year, and his next goal, he'll pass Darryl Sittler for most goals by a Leafs center in Leafs history. Alex Ovechkin, he's at 49 goals. His next goal will get him to 50, which will be his 8th of his Hall of Fame NHL career. And that will put him only behind Wayne Gretzky and Mike Bossy for most 50-goal seasons in NHL history at 9. Also, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Leon Draisaitl both had hat tricks against the LA Kings. Nugent-Hopkins doing it in the first period alone. They're the first.
It was a wild game last night. So.
Oh man, it's like every time I checked, there was another goal being scored, which was just crazy. Like I think McDavid had 4 points in that game. Draisaitl had the Hattie 4 points. It was just nuts. But yeah, they're the first Oiler teammates to score a hat trick in the same game since Yari Curry and Paul Coffey did it all the way back in 1985, also against the Los Angeles Kings. Cool little stat there.
McDavid said before the game yesterday that he was going to catch Kucherov in scoring. I'm kidding. He didn't say that. But the way he played made me think that he wants to try to do so.
Oh, and Kucherov's actually quieted off a little bit in his past few games. So I know he got a goal last game, but he's still
he's only up by 8 points. So
yeah, you never know. But I was hoping Kucherov could get to 130 this year, but it looks like he might fall a little short there unless he gets a couple more big games. Also sticking in that game, Dustin Brown tomorrow, he'll become the Los Angeles Kings all-time leader in games played, passing Dave Taylor to play his 1,112th career game.
So for all you LA fans, I apologize, but Dustin Brown, Although
So,
I'm not a fan, but I'm sure as any fan would say, you'd love to have him on your team.
mhm. Also, sticking Sam Steele got a hat trick against the Canucks last night. He is only the third rookie to score a hat trick with a penalty shot in NHL history. The other ones were Eric Lindros in 1992 and Timu Solani in 1993 are the only other two rookies. Let's see here. Ben Bishop got his 200th career win. I believe that was against Winnipeg and their big win there.
What about the
Cool.
other? You have another hat trick stat as well.
Oh, yes. So there are 93 hat tricks scored this year. There were only 81 all of last season, which shows the improved scoring this year with some of the rule changes and the changes to goalie equipment this season. Scoring has been way up.
I love it. I think the goalies, they're still padded and protected, and there seems to be more net to shoot at, even though the goalies are still, big transformers in net there.
Well, I'm still a little bit concerned on the chest protector front, just because I know over the season there have been some goalies getting hurt on shots in either practice or in games, getting bruised up. But other than that, like the other equipment stuff, I'm totally fine with. It's more because I know as a goalie myself, it's like you never like those shots to the shoulder. If you get it in the right spot, those things can hurt like crazy. But other than that, it's like I have no problem with any of the other rule changes for the goalie here.
What do you got for injury reports for us?
Injury report. Oh, and one last thing, because I want to throw a Canuck stat in here. Alex Edler tied Matthias Oland for most goals scored by a Canuck defenseman in their franchise history with his 93rd of his career. And getting to injuries, the Islanders have a couple big ones. They lost Andrew Ladd for the season with a torn ACL. He had a huge injury plague season. He only played 26 games this season. They also lost Valtteri Filppula for 4 weeks with an upper body injury. We got Dustin Byfuglien. He's nearing a return. I think he said he probably could play tomorrow, but the team will probably hold him out just for precautionary reasons. Chris Letang is day-to-day with an upper body injury in Pittsburgh, but Olli Mata is back at practice as well. So they're pretty close to getting all their top six defensemen back in the lineup. In Boston, Sean Corrali had a fractured right hand, and he's out 4 weeks. Derek Stepan returned from upper body injury for Arizona earlier this week. And Quinn Hughes will probably make his debut tomorrow for the Vancouver Canucks as he's been nursing that foot injury. And Ben Hutton is also a high probability to be back in the lineup.
Hopefully Hutton's back in town. I saw he was in Ontario there the last week. Let's talk about the LA Kings. I know I just kind of spit on them a little bit there, but Drew Doughty had some interesting comments about Matt Tkachuk this week. Obviously, he's a huge fan of Matt Tkachuk. And our good friend Willie Desjardins down there and Ilya Kovalchuk seem to have something going on. Why don't you fill us in with the latest on those two incidences?
Yeah. So I'll touch on Kovalchuk first because as a Canuck fan, we know all about Willie D up here in Vancouver. So basically, Kovalchuk's been a healthy scratch for I think last three or four games, and he's actually stayed at home on the Kings' recent road trip here. Just because there probably wasn't to be a chance to get him in the lineup. But the Kings have been going with dressing 7 defensemen and only 11 forwards the past couple games. And of course, the Kings' 7th defenseman was only playing about 8 minutes in the game, which just makes it strange why you'd scratch and Kovalchuk over that. But Kovalchuk said he'd understand if they were playing younger forwards and wanting to get a look at them. But the thing is, they aren't, which makes it crazy. So, I know he stayed home back in LA to work with some skills coach. I think him and Rob Blake actually had a conversation, and they agreed that was the best thing. So he might not even play the rest of the season, possibly, which is weird.
His biggest issue is his name's not Magna or Chaput.
Oh, but the thing is, he's sort of like in that Nikolai Golovin route where he's still like fourth or fifth on the team in points, even though he's been healthy scratch and stuff. And I know Kovalchuk, like he has his defensive lapses. He's sort of a freelancer out there. And Willie D, he's all about those systems, just sitting back and letting the other team coming at you wave after wave after wave. But yeah, that'll be something interesting to see because he still has 2 years left on his contract. And he says he still wants to stay in Los Angeles, and Desjardins probably.
Yeah, I don't think Desjardins will be back at the end of the year.
Yeah, and then getting into the Drew Doughty stuff. So he had some stuff on Matthew Tkachuk and also Brent Burns as well. So on the Tkachuk stuff,
although his stuff on Brent Burns, the stats actually back him up a little bit, so which was surprising to me.
Oh, it depends on how deep you want to go into the stats. But to touch on Tkachuk first, like we know they've had like their little thing because Tkachuk had that high headshot, I believe. I forget if it was last year or the year before on Doughty, and ever since then these guys have been going at each other. So basically, he said like nobody respects him. A lot of the guys don't respect Tkachuk. And stuff like that, and they got into a bit of a slashing thing in their game in Calgary, and also the stuff on Brent Burns. He says like he doesn't even understand why Brent Burns is even in the Norris conversation this year. I believe he leads all NHL defensemen with around like 74, somewhere between 74, 77 points this year.
Yeah, I think he's got 76 right now.
Okay. Yeah. So he's basically been saying like Burns hasn't exactly been playing against like the top guys, and he's been being beat pretty frequently and stuff. And some of the advanced stats, I remember reading one on the Athletic. I forget if it was a month or two ago, and it showed all the it was basically a chart of every NHL team and how the coach deploys all their defensemen, who gets the matchups against the first, second, third, fourth lines. And Marc-Edouard Vlasic, Justin Braun, and I believe Brendan Dillon were all in front of Brent Burns in deployment. So Burns was a little bit lower, either facing second or third line guys. So if he's not facing those top line guys, it does back up Doughty's comments. Though Burns is still a heck of a defense, especially offensively.
Oh yeah.
Even just like how many shots on goal he can get every game, but it is cool to see an NHL player just speaking his mind on stuff because usually guys are pretty reserved.
Can you imagine? I mean, it's not going to happen this year, but if LA and Calgary ever had a playoff series against each other, it'd just be incredible to watch.
But yeah, that basically sums all that stuff up. But if also we
have some signings starting with head coach at Tampa Bay Lightning. Let's go to John Cooper.
So the longest tenured coach in the NHL right now, John Cooper, got a multi-year extension after coaching 7 years now in Tampa Bay. He has a record of 301 wins, 157 losses, and 44 overtime or shootout losses, which is crazy good. Tampa Bay has the best power play, the best penalty kill this year. They lead the league in goals for. I think they're like up to like 306 goals this year.
I don't think there's enough people talking about them. I mean, they're only 2 points away from the Detroit Red Wings record. I believe it was their 06 team that was filled with all those Hall of Famers. And nobody's really talking about them. And here they're about to break the record for the most points by a team in the NHL in the last 30 years or so. And they're doing some pretty incredible things. So,
and they're 1 win away from 60 this year too, which is just crazy because like as much as you want to like Trotz might be the front runner for Coach of the Year, usually like I know voters have usually shied away from like all like the top team coaches just because they've been so good for so long. But the way John Cooper has coached this team, like to have like the first place like in each special teams, the best record, just everything. You got to give props to the coach because I think the Tampa Bay's penalty kill last year was actually more at the bottom of the league. So to have a turnaround like that this year where they're at the top is crazy good. Like, but yeah, it's like it looks like it'll be probably between Trotz and John Cooper this year. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays because usually it goes from like the best turnaround team. That's usually how it goes. But that's something to keep an eye on.
I'm going to call it that Barry Trotz gets it.
Yeah.
As much as I want to give it to Cooper, Trotz has done unbelievable. Like we said already, you know, the worst goals against to the best goals against in the league. Winning a Stanley Cup last year and taking on a whole new team this year, and already, you know, they're going to make the playoffs. So he's done a great job in New York.
Well, and rising above all the John Tavares stuff leading into the season, where everybody was counting them out and stuff, and now they're pretty much a lock to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah. Well, and what? Oh yeah, we got a couple other signings as well,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, so a couple other minor signings. Philadelphia gave Michael Raffl a 2-year extension with a $1.6 million cap hit. He has 6 goals, 18 points in 61 games this season. And in Chicago, they gave defenseman Carl Dahlstrom a 2-year extension with an $850K cap hit. He has 6 assists in 35 games while averaging 18.5 minutes.
That's fantastic. Anything else before we wrap up today's show?
Just to touch on Jacob Voracek's comments in Philadelphia, he basically said the team choked this year in their playoff race, which is rightfully so. Like first, they put themselves in a bad spot because they couldn't get any goaltending, and some of their star players were struggling. But they did have some chances. They had a couple games against Montreal and some of those other bubble teams, but they lost all those games. So basically counted them out. But it's pretty cool to see a player to say, yeah, it's all on us sort of thing. But it'll be interesting. Yeah, it'll sort of be odd not to see Philadelphia in the playoffs this year. Usually they've been a lock. I forget for how many years in a row now. But otherwise, other than that, I think that's about it. So so today's highlights will be on our Facebook page. I think there's only 4 games today, and you can catch all yesterday's highlights. I know there was a lot there, but yeah, those will all be up later tonight.
Fantastic. Remember to like and share on our Facebook page, or if you're seeing this on YouTube, remember to hit the subscribe button, give us a follow. Leave your comments below on either one. Interact with us. Let us know about your favorite guys and hockey teams so that we can talk about them. So thank you again to all of our loyal fans, and we'll continue to bring this. Our next episode is this Friday, and we'll be doing a full, complete Vancouver Canucks wrap-up, and we'll get to talk about Quinn Hughes' debut. So everyone have a great day. Enjoy the Columbus and Montreal game tomorrow night, and we'll see you guys on Friday.